In this episode I would like to look at this tenfold geometric pattern from Turkey. The way it's been made is very traditional. It uses a traditional style that's typical for Ottoman objects, with mother of pearl inlay, with turtle shell inlay, and using tenfold geometric patterns. It's very common, and in this composition you can see a lot of familiar elements like the big 10-pointed star in the middle and then half 10-pointed stars on the left and on the right. However, there's something going on with this composition that isn't right, that doesn't work. And I want to analyze that, and by doing so show you what the issue is. So what we can see in this composition is that there are some recurring shapes, and there's one recurring shape that I want to focus on, which is this pentagon with a little pattern inside. This pentagon is arranged around the central star 10 times. Some of them don't completely fit on there, but they're arranged around the central star. And what you can see when that is done is that the way these pentagonal shapes with their content sit next to each other, that you get certain shapes that are not supposed to be next to each other. Mainly those mother of pearl inlay shapes, those little bow tie shapes as I call them. They're not supposed to be touching each other in the way that they are. They're not supposed to be aligned next to each other in the way they are. And let's have a look at how traditionally this would have been done in some of the many similar traditional Ottoman compositions, like these doors in the Topkapi Palace that you can see here. So as we zoom in, hopefully you can see that we have a similar arrangement of bow tie shapes with mother of pearl inlay shapes around them. You can see that the way they're arranged with their environment is that these lines always continue, that these shapes sit next to other shapes, and you don't get identical shapes sitting next to each other in the same way as they do in the composition that I've just shown. Here's some other examples. You can see that what all these compositions have in common is that lines continue, lines intersect, two lines intersect. However, when we look at the composition that we're analyzing today, you can see that that's not the case. That all the shapes are familiar, or the technique, the material is familiar, but the way the composition has been structured is not in the same way that it would have been done by traditional Ottoman designers. The way that this has been constructed, by having a big 10-sided shape in the middle surrounded by 10 pentagons with contents inside these pentagons and inside the 10-sided shape in the middle, it creates a composition that on the face of it looks alright, but doesn't work. Lines aren't continuous, you get 3 lines converging on one point. It doesn't adhere to the same rules, it doesn't adhere to the same principles of best practice as you would have seen traditionally in similar compositions that were made during the Ottoman era. Here are 2 doors in the Topkapi Palace, which, as you can see here as well, is a beautiful piece of art and uses similar materials, similar 10-pointed stars in the middle, but the way it's been constructed, the way the composition works, is more accomplished, more traditional, more according to best practice than the example that we're looking at in this little tutorial.